What's up, everybody? It's your boy JP, back with another video. And today I have, that's right, the Motorola Edge X30 5G, the world's first Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 powered smartphone. The chipset that's going to power all of your huge, big name, big ticket flagship smartphones of 2022. And I already got it here for you at the end of 2021. It's not even Christmas yet. It's actually Christmas Eve, December 24th, Friday. I've had this phone for 2 days now. I got it on Wednesday. Shout out to giztop.com. They shipped it out to me immediately. I've done business with them before. I've always had good dealings with them, but this was by far the absolute best. They couldn't wait for me to get my hands on this phone, and it showed. They made sure I got it quick. My opinions on this phone is going to be based after the firmware update. There was already a lot of overviews and reviews done on this phone before the update that showed this phone to be kind of glitchy, kind of slow for what it was supposed to be powered by. Still faster than everything else out, but it wasn't quite scoring that million point Antutu score that Motorola and Qualcomm had been bragging about. Well, the firmware update changes all of that. And I got the phone Wednesday, which was the 22nd of December. And I actually wasn't even supposed to get it until the 27th, which was next Monday. But again, I already got it. As you can see, shout out to GizTop and DHL. They never fail. I got the firmware update day one when I took it out of the box and had it connected to Wi-Fi before I even put my SIM in it. And it's been running smooth. It's been running spectacular. There was one review on this phone, and I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more from what the person said. I forgot exactly which review it was. It was definitely one of the more positive ones. But he said it's basically like using a Pixel 6 Pro. But instead of the Tensor chip, it has the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 processor. Not the Snapdragon 888 or 888 Plus, like what powers that over there that I'll get to in another video, the G200. But the latest and greatest 2022 premium flagship Qualcomm processor, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. Now, for all of y'all that have been following me, y'all know that I was also one of the first to bring an overview of the first Snapdragon 888 powered phone at the very, very, very beginning of this year, back in January, the first or second week of January 2021, and that was the Xiaomi Mi the Xiaomi Mi 11 with the Snapdragon 888. I actually ordered that phone before Christmas because GizTop had it available for pre-order, but of course I didn't get it until after the new year. No fault of theirs. That's just, Xiaomi actually didn't release it. They announced it. It was either right after Christmas or right before New Year's. They tried to release it in 2021, but it didn't really actually, or they tried to release it in 2020, I should say, but it didn't actually reach consumer hands still until 2021 in January. They were still the first. And the Mi 11 was the first Snapdragon 888 powered phone, but it didn't quite reach anyone's hands in 2020, even though they made it a point to announce it, in 2020 still, But shout out to Xiaomi, they were still the first, But Motorola here, they are coming back with a vengeance. They are coming back for that ass. You heard me right. They are coming back for that ass because Motorola is, they're just taking names, taking numbers. They are the first out the gate with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 processor. That is the all-new 4nm. Qualcomm beat Apple to the punch. MediaTek did too, because their Dimensity 9000 is also 4nm powered. That's coming. That's fixing to hit phones soon as well. I'm more than likely going to be bringing y'all a couple of those in the next month or two. Because I am a MediaTek fan. I'm not gonna lie. I am a MediaTek fan. I've been very impressed with them for a couple of years now. But they all beat Apple to the punch because the Apple what is the A15 Bionic is is a 5 nanometer chipset. It's not a 3 or even a 4. Shout out to Apple still, though. I'm actually recording this video with an iPhone 13 Pro. I know I don't do a lot of iPhone videos, but I am an iPhone fan. Again, I'm shooting this with an iPhone 13 Pro. I think it's coming out fantastic, honestly. And of course the A15 Bionic is still a freaking beast. It's still a monster. I'm definitely not taking anything away from it, but just the fact that Apple is not the first. Qualcomm and MediaTek have been with 4 nanometer chipsets. I mean, this is just phenomenal. And by the time Apple releases what they were gunning, because they've been gunning for the 3 nanometer title, the first with it for they were talking about that a year ago, and it looks like, Qualcomm and or MediaTek are going to beat them to that as well, to the 3 nanometer race. But nonetheless, there's a lot of reviews for this phone where, for this chipset in this phone where it doesn't quite get the 1,000,000-point Antutu benchmark score. But even in the high 900,000s, it's still faster than Snapdragon 888 Plus powered phones and anything else out on the market, besides maybe your iPhone 13 series, of course. And that just kind of, that's kind of a no to Apple and their amazing optimization that they're known for. But when the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 is optimized, I mean, you finally got something that's actually beating Apple. That's actually not only beating Apple's last generation chipset, but their current generation chipset, the A15 Bionic. A lot of it does have to do with the fact that it's 4 nanometers versus 5, but it's much more than just that. There is a lot of optimization going on. The firmware update literally makes this phone run way smoother than it did out of the box for many of the reviewers that had already had the phone a couple weeks before that update hit. Again, by the time I got the phone, the update was day 1. And I haven't noticed any of the hiccups that a lot of the reviewers have. I haven't experienced any hiccup, honestly. This phone runs just like the Pixel 6 and 6 Pro, in my opinion, especially with Android 12. Unfortunately, the G200 right there it still has Android 11, but it still runs great for what it is. It's an LCD screen, which is really where this phone right here shines. This is a Full HD Plus AMOLED panel, and it's absolutely gorgeous. It has a ultra small punch hole, just like a lot of your Xiaomi phones, were coming out with all of 2021. It was also a feature that I raved about on the Realme GT Neo 2, which I think may have been the last phone or one of the last phones that I actually did an overview on back about a month ago. And those very small punch holes were originally possible because of the use of Samsung E4 AMOLED displays that were used on the Galaxy S21 series. And honestly, I think this phone may even be using the Samsung E5 AMOLED technology, which you'll obviously see with the Galaxy S22 series that will come out in February and March, and it'll rock this same chipset right here, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. Again, Motorola's beat them to the punch. And I honestly think Motorola has even beat Samsung to the punch, even as the manufacturers of their own screens for their S22 series, because pretty sure this is an E5 panel, not just an E4. But even if it is just an E4, that is amazing still, because you have a lot, there was still a lot of flagship powered devices in 2021 that were still using E3 AMOLED panels, where the punch holes were larger than you would have liked them to have been. Really, besides Samsung themselves, Xiaomi were the main ones using the E4 panels, even for their value handsets. Even for their non-5G Redmi Note 10 phones, they were using E4 AMOLED panels with the ultra small punch holes. And it was still their MediaTek powered ones for some reason that were using the E3s until towards the end of the year, when we started seeing their later MediaTek powered 5G phones later on towards the end of the year that we're not only rocking AMOLEDs like they had already were, like the Qualcomm counterparts, but we're finally using E4 instead of E3 because they were starting to feature smaller punch holes as well. And again, the one big advantage that the Realme Neo 2, that the Realme GT Neo 2 had over the flagship Realme GT is the fact that it had a larger and better Samsung E4 panel versus the E3. So, you know, again, if this is just an E4 and my eyes are deceiving me and it's not the new E5, that's just fine because that is phenomenal for the price. I mean, man, the price. Let's talk about that. Again, I mean, honestly, for the price and this chipset, I mean, I'd honestly understand if it had an E3 panel from Samsung. I mean, let alone an E4 or an E5. I mean, seriously, $599. And that's what I paid for it from GizTop. Okay? The phone in China goes for less than that. It goes for like $4 something, like $470, I think. But even $599, you are not going to see global variants of Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 powered phones, go for that low amount of money. Motorola is going to definitely hold the title of being the cheapest one or one of the cheapest ones for the entire year of 2022. I mean, even as more and more manufacturers use the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 and the price begins to go down a little bit, it's, that's pending that the chip shortage doesn't affect pricing. But, because usually when there's not a chip shortage, and the processors, and there's all this competition out. Every single company's wanting to use the processor. They're all trying to beat each other, in pricing and value and features. What can do more for a lower price, etc. That tends to drive the prices down again if there's no chip shortage. And pending that is the best case scenario for 2022. I really don't even see anybody either way, even if we're, whether we're in the chip shortage still or not throughout 2022, I don't see a lot of companies that are going to beat Motorola in this price, with this price for this chipset, this price range. Realize, until there is a Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 Plus chipset that Qualcomm may or may not announce sometime in August of 2022, which is 8 months from now. Until we see that, this is going to be the processor that is going to reign supreme. Because after, the next month after August would be September, obviously. The next iPhones will come out and they'll have the A16. Whether it's still called the Bionic or not, we'll have to wait and find out. But, the A16, I'm sure, whether it's 4 nanometer or 3, or even if it sticks to 5 nanometers, it's probably gonna obviously be more powerful than the current A15 Bionic, and it's probably gonna out benchmark the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. But of course, I'm predicting that a month before that, a Plus variant to the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 will come out, as they do most of the time, and it'll further advance the power of this chipset. But until that point, every Qualcomm flagship powered smartphone released, between January and then, and even after then, is going to be powered by the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 chipset. Because even if a Plus is announced, phones will still come out afterwards rocking, the non-Plus variant. There was quite a few phones that came out after the Snapdragon 888 Plus was announced and had already been found in retail devices, for consumers. And devices were still coming out with the standard Snapdragon 888. So it's not like when the Plus comes out, they have to use the Plus. Companies can still opt for the non-Plus variant. This is just, again, I'm going to be here in the same spot this time next year, probably talking about a phone that's powered by the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. And it's crazy that, that I have, of all people, I've already gotten my hands on one. So, this is just great. This is awesome. I'm really looking forward to just kind of, giving you an overview of it. I spent so much of this video just talking about how great the new chipset is, then I'm actually going to save the overview for another video. But don't sleep on the Moto G200 here with the Snapdragon 888 Plus. There's a lot of differences here too, between Chinese and global, which I'm going to get to. That is the actual US sold Motorola or Moto Watch 100 right there. It came out December 15th. I got mine on the 17th or 18th, and I've been rocking it ever since here. I have another smartwatch coming in the mail today, the Redmi Watch 2 with AMOLED screen, which I can't wait for. But if y'all are wondering about the differences between global and Chinese and whatnot, okay. Number one, this is the Chinese version. That is the name of the phone, the Motorola Edge X30. A lot of places are calling it the Moto Edge X30. Generally, Motorola only shortens their name to Moto for their G series and their E series, and they also did it for their for their Z series when that was a thing, as well as the X series when that was a thing. Of course, we don't really get anything for the X and Z series anymore. They pretty much discontinued those. But for the G's and the E's, they still shorten their name to Moto. And a lot of things for the Motorola Edge X30 still, they actually call it the Moto Edge X30. But generally for their flagship Edge series, they spell their name completely out as Motorola, but I guess it doesn't really matter. There's no point in really, beating that up for another, anything past a minute. But this is, in fact, the Chinese version, the Motorola Edge X30. The global variant, the one that will come out in the UK and the US at some point, will be called the Motorola Edge 30 Ultra. So they'll take the X away from in front of the 30 and add Ultra behind it. So it'll be the Motorola Edge 30 Ultra. This phone, the Chinese variant, is not the greatest example of its new camera system. It has two 50 megapixel sensors. I forget what the third sensor is, but in the front it does have a 16 megapixel front-facing camera, and there's supposed to be a special edition all-screen version of this phone, same specs, but it'll have the an under-display front-facing camera, but it'll feature the same 16 megapixel that this one right here has, with it facing out and visible. That's going to be really cool. I probably won't get my hands on that one. This is probably going to be the only one that I'll get in this series. I may get the global one when that launches, but I don't really need to. And the reason why is because Giztop has already formatted this with the Google Play services and the Google Play Store. And even if I reset it and lose it, it's very easy to get it back on here because GMS is still built in, which is the Google mobile services. GMS is still built in, so it does make it easy to install the Google Play services and the Google Play Store. And this phone is actually, I have found that this phone is actually the friendliest when it comes to sideload in the Google Play Store and the other Google apps. It once they're all installed, there's not many glitches, if any, at all. I find that it works just as if it was a global phone. Even though Xiaomi phones are very easy to sideload, the Chinese variants, they're very easy to sideload, the Google Play services and Google Play Store, there's still a lot of glitches that after a couple weeks of using them, I just really get tired of them. And as much as I love the phone, I end up reverting back or reverting forward to something global. And then I end up getting rid of the Chinese Xiaomi phone that's in question. And of course, I just said reverting forward. That made no sense because reverting literally means to go back. But y'all know what I meant, though. I will either revert to whatever global phone I was using previously, or I will find another phone to upgrade to. I mean, of course, if it's the same processor, it's not really an upgrade, but it's, it'll be something of the same power, and if it's global, I won't have to worry about the glitches and stuff like that. This is definitely ultra friendly when it comes to, the Google Play services being installed. The Chinese, a lot of people say that the Chinese variants of Motorola phones, they're not as stock as global Motorola phones. There's a difference between their their My UX and My UI. I'm not really sure which one goes to what. I'm not sure if My UI is global and My UX is Chinese, or if I have that backwards. But there's some kind of difference between My UI, which obviously stands for user interface, and My UX, which I know stands for user experience. But the global variants typically are more stock, and they have, but I don't really know what they mean, because the Motorola X30 Edge X30 right here seems just as stock as that G200 does right there. And I've been able to delete or disable all of the bloatware. There actually wasn't a lot of bloatware on here to begin with, not really any much more than what that global G200 right there had, which was intended for the UK, the UK market. I mean, it's pretty clean. I've gotten everything, deleted or disabled. I mean, there wasn't even a lot of Chinese apps on it, honestly. I mean, I don't know if that's something that Giztop did before shipping it to me, but I think they literally just installed the Google Play services and Play Store for me. I mean, they even did it nicely to where the box still has the wrap, still partially has the wrap on it. I don't even want to take it off, and I kind of need to, because it'll show you the logo better, so it's not reflecting off the light. The wrap wouldn't be reflecting off the light, but I just can't bring myself to take it off because they did such a good job. I can literally put it back in the box and it looks almost sealed. Their charger's really cool here. Oh, you know what? I'll get to that in the actual overview video that I said I was going to do separately. But yeah, this phone globally will be known as the Motorola Edge 30 Ultra. Now, what's funny is, they actually, when China announced, when Motorola or Lenovo of China announced this phone right here, the Edge X30, which is the actual Chinese variant, which is what I have here, they also announced a slightly less powerful variant with an LCD screen and a Snapdragon 888 Plus processor, the Edge S30. They went from the Edge X30 with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 to the Edge S30 with the Snapdragon 888 Plus. And that is actually the Chinese variant of this phone right here, the Moto G200. The thing is, they released them backwards, because as y'all know, last year, the Edge S ended up becoming globally the Moto G100. I actually had the Edge S and did a video on it last January or February. And the Edge S came out in China first. It was the first Snapdragon 870 powered phone. So Motorola has literally been on a roll. They completely skipped the 888 and did an 888 Plus powered phone, which is that right there. But the 870 Snapdragon powered phone was the Edge S, which was for China. And then it was 2 or 3 months later, it came out in the UK market as the Moto G100. And then it came out a month or two later as the Moto G100 in the US. It's funny because Floss actually just did a video not even 2 weeks ago on the Moto G100, calling it the most powerful Moto G phone. And he actually, I hate to say it, and I'm not trying to throw shade whatsoever, because he's definitely my favorite reviewer. But at that time, I was already using this phone right here. I've had this phone right here, the Moto G200. I've had this phone for, I got this one right here, the Edge X30, Wednesday. I've had that phone right there, the G200, as of today for 2 weeks. Exactly 2 weeks today. And he had just did his video on the G100 not even 2 weeks ago. I mean, I was literally watching his video talking about how it was the most powerful Moto G. I was literally watching that video from the Moto G200, and I was like, no, I'm actually using the most powerful Moto G phone right now. But this phone is released, it came out in China the same day that this phone did, or announced anyways, and they still came out together a week later, as the Moto S, the Edge S30. It just released globally first as the Moto G200. It already came out in UK, and then they kind of reverted back to China, and it came out as the S30. And I'm hoping that means that the G200 will come out in the US sooner than the G100 did. Because the G100, the Moto G100 didn't even come out in the US until like June, I think. Maybe May. I'm pretty sure it was in June. So it would definitely be a treat if it came out sooner. But I do have 5G working on both these phones. Believe it or not, it's easier on the Chinese X30, Edge X30 than it is on the UK Moto G200, believe it or not. I don't know if that has anything to do with the new processor or whatnot. I doubt it, but I'll get to that as well. But I do have 5G on AT&T working with both these phones. Again, here in Shreveport, Louisiana, for those of you that don't know where I record from. But anyways, y'all stay tuned. I got a more in-depth video coming of each of these devices here coming up. And I will see y'all then. Peace out.